Hello and welcome. This video will serve as a quick start guide to installing and using GridDB. First things first, let's head over to GitHub and grab a copy of our RPM. I usually just prefer to copy the link and install it using my terminal. Once you've input the command you see on screen, your machine will handle the rest. Alrighty, so now that GridDB is installed, let's just go ahead and edit the configuration files. It's a lot easier to do when you switch over to the GridDB user, so let's go ahead and do that. We need to set a name for our cluster, so we will need to edit the cluster.json file. For the purposes of this video, we will simply name it default cluster. In here, we will also set the replication number to 1. Next, we will change the node.json file. The changes made in this file are completely optional, but we decided to show it to you anyway because these are very important when configuring your own cluster. Here we will change the number of CPU cores we run concurrently, and we will change the store memory limit. These values will change entirely based on your needs and system. If you need lots of memory, go ahead and increase your store memory limit. Excellent. So now just go ahead and save the file. Now that that's done, the next step is to set a password for the default GridDB admin user. For the purposes of this video, we'll set the password to the very insecure admin. Once our password is confirmed and set, the next step will be start our nodes and join our cluster. Starting your node and joining your cluster are as easy as following the command seen on screen. As you can see, you need to input your username and password in the command. Once you've started your node and joined your cluster, the next obvious step is to make sure that your cluster is actually up and running. GridDB comes equipped with such a tool. So to do this, simply run the command run on screen, and it will show you a bunch of the statistics for your cluster. As you can see, this command is very useful. You will likely be using this a lot just to verify a few things about your cluster, such as which nodes are connected to it, and other important performance metrics. Okay, so now for this next portion, we're going to show you a small sample application that can show you that your database is actually up and running and working well. And actually, the nice thing about this sample app is that it already comes along with the RPM you've already downloaded. So just to keep things nice and tidy, we're going to go ahead and copy the sample app that came with the RPM into its own directory. Because GridDB uses Java, we need to export the class path to point it to our grid store jar. So please go ahead and copy the commands you see on screen. And please note that the method you see on screen is only a temporary point to the grid store jar. If you restart your machine or log out and log back in, it will no longer point to this jar. Next, we simply run the javac command to compile, and that's all. Next up is actually running the command. So as you can see on screen, first you type in Java, and then you point to the file. You input the notification address and the notification port, the cluster name, your username, and then your password. If everything is right, you should get a similar output to the one you see on screen. Okay, so next up we need to go ahead and stop our cluster. So since it's only a one node cluster, we simply leave the cluster and then stop that one node. As you can see, you need to input your username and password again. Once you get the on-screen message that the node is stopped, your GridDB is completely shut down. And now we're finally finished. This was just the first in a series of videos we will do to help you get started with GridDB. We hope you enjoyed. Happy developing!